over there at CSIS, you recently released a report on DeepSeek and its geopolitical implications, including some previously unreported information about chip smuggling and the specific technologies that they're using. So, for our audience, maybe just remind us a little bit about why DeepSeek caused such a panic when it first came out, and also the main findings of this report.
Before DeepSeek came out, we thought that the non-PRC companies like Meta and Anthropic and OpenAI really had moats, which means that they were protected against other AI players because of the scale of the investments they could make, their access to very high-end chips, and their ability to consume energy. And so we thought that all of those things really meant that it would be difficult or impossible for PRC companies to do the same. And what we discovered with DeepSeek is that the PRC companies are becoming very innovative. We saw this with Huawei, right, where they were cut off from Western chips. Some of them are smuggled in, obviously, or they obtain illicitly. But the reality is that they also get very creative about using lower end chips in order to do these workloads and to make advancements. And so in the case of DeepSeek, we saw basically them leveraging the same sorts of techniques that Huawei did in terms of using these lower end chips very efficiently. And so it does raise questions about the effectiveness of export controls.
Where are US export controls effective at slowing down Chinese AI development, and where do they seem to sort of be failing at that goal?
So I would say that it's not clear that the export controls are slowing down development significantly. I think if you look at what the export controls do, they impose costs, meaning that it's more expensive. It can be challenging for the PRC. They have to find workarounds, and so it can make things more costly for them in some ways. But ultimately, if they're determined to develop these models using some smuggled chips, some stockpiled chips, as well as some lower end chips, they're going to be able to do it in relatively fast time.
So ultimately, do you feel that these export controls on chips and AI diffusion are an effective policy and a wise policy moving forward?
I think that they should be one tool in the arsenal that the US and its allies and partners use. I do think that, as I mentioned, it's important to balance the benefits and the costs. And when I say benefits, I mean that you're making it more difficult for the PRC. But it should be one tool. It's not a panacea. And I think that there was a view that it was a panacea. You need to combine different tools, right? Like boosting production in US allies and partners. You need to use R&D to make sure that we run faster and develop better technology than the PRC. We need to really protect our IP and ensure, there are all kinds of efforts, but we need to be careful about taking them too far.
Simply put, do you think that DeepSeek is a national security risk?
Yes, absolutely. Particularly because at this point, anyone can still use it. So it could be a vector for all kinds of things, spying. It would be very easy to use it to leverage a malicious cyber attack if the PRC wanted to. And so, as well as misinformation and trying to do influence campaigns that change perceptions of the PRC. And it hasn't been banned in the US. Now, President Trump could ban it under the same law that Congress passed to ban TikTok. He would just have to determine that DeepSeek is a national security risk. When I speak to people in a lot of our allies and partners in those governments, it's a very similar situation to Huawei, which is they recognize this is a risk, they recognize the threat, but they're also worried about retaliation from the PRC. In the case of businesses, it presents risks of IP theft that they should really take into account. Once they're installing DeepSeek and using it on their IT systems, and it could be a vector for obtaining access to their actual operational technology.